Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I hope everyone is having a great day so far. I have a migraine, like, will not quit. I feel like I'm going to puke. But as they say, the show must go on. I didn't want to miss my coffee chat, especially because this week is when I'm doing my live Let's Kick Brass online workshop. So I wanted to make sure that all of you know that it's this Sunday. If you missed it last time, I hope that you'll catch it this Sunday. It's a lot of great information on brass-free results. I also wanted to talk about that today because I had a really fun corrective service that I did last night. I was at work very late, probably why I have such a migraine. But as we all know, clients have no idea what's involved in doing their hair. So she had lots and lots of hair, fine texture, but a lot of it. Beautiful, beautiful young girl. She's in college. So she calls the salon and says, I was referred to Elaine. I want to have color with her. And one of my stylists puts her in for a 1-hour appointment. So I've learned after 32 years of doing this and running behind all too often that 1 hour is never enough, especially for a new client in color. So I asked for them to call her back and put her as my last one at the end of the night. And thank God I did. She was my 7 and I was locking the salon door at 11 o'clock by the time I cleaned up and caught up on all the other things that I didn't do while I was doing her. So we can all get a brass-free result if we take the time and we understand every step of the way what we're doing in the process. So what I found if you follow me on here and you've been to my classes, you know I spend way too much time in hair color forums on Facebook. I try to be quiet and just sit back and look to see what are people looking for, what are the same things happening over and over again that I can keep putting into my courses so that people don't have these issues, because it's always the same 3-4 things over and over and over, just different forums. And when I see people's response to it, the answers that they give them, I think there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of misunderstanding of what you're working with. What are the bases of the colors that you're working with? Hang on a sec. Do you need me? Oh, you're done? My gosh. I got strangers in my house in the middle of my coffee talk. Thank you. So if you don't really understand what the base is in the color that you're using, you think that you do, but you haven't really done your homework. You're just taking the manufacturer's word for it, which most of us always do. But the beauty of having Beth Minardi as a mentor and going to all of her education is that if you break down the bases of what's in Redken Shades EQ, you'll find a lot of surprises in there, both good and bad. One of the biggest misconceptions and surprises that I learned from Beth, and I've since used to my advantage, is Redken Shades EQ G, like girl, 9G, 6G. The G series in the Redken Shades is a green gold. I never knew that. So I would look at the bottle of G, and in my mind, I would think 14 karat gold, gold. We're always so afraid of gold. Everybody's always avoiding gold. But because it's a green-based gold, it actually is a cool gold, and it's the perfect shade to like beige out somebody who's just a little bit too warm, and you don't want to go in with a violet and make it really matte and ashy. You want to keep it bright, but you want to take away some of that yellow tinge. It has a green gold base. I didn't know that coming up in, using shades for almost my whole entire career, probably 25 out of the 32 years I've been doing Shades EQ. So when she told me that, I was like, oh, wow, I'm not going to be afraid of the G anymore. So if you're ever in doubt when you're using these Redken shades, if you take a cotton ball and just take the shades right out of the bottle, don't mix it with the developer, and just put a drop on a cotton ball and let it sit and process. If you do that with the with the gold, you'll see the cotton ball has this yellowy green tinge to it. So you'll see the true base. Another one that really could cause a lot of problems. I'm really shocked after all these years that Redken has kept that shade named that way. The AA series in Redken, we're all taught that double A is double ash. So I can't even, I would love to talk to someone who works at Redken and see how many hotline calls were made with someone who grabbed a 9AA trying to get the ashiest, coolest platinum blonde on somebody. And if you've used 9AA, you'll know what I'm talking about. It would be so warm. It's like, looks like ketchup coming out of the bottle. It's so bright orange, which is great because when someone's hair is trashed and has no tone left in it, it's not holding on to color anymore. That's my go-to. I use the 9AA, but I understand that it's, I guess it's Auburn. I don't know why the A, but think about it. If you go to a new salon, you get a new job and you show up at the salon and you just reach for the 9AA, I would, not knowing that, I would think, oh, cool, double ash. That's awesome that they have that for me at a level 9. So you have to understand what your bases are. And I think that some of the biggest problems that occur in salons all over the world is grabbing and using something that you don't really quite understand what it is. Now, there's other people who do education who will talk about the N series in Redken shades. This is shades I'm talking about, not color fusion, not the permanent color. They'll say N is a warm neutral. I 100% disagree. I think the N is a cool neutral, and that's why I love it, because it never goes warm. It never over deposits. It's like a beautiful, perfect neutral. I will use it if somebody got a little brassy over the summer. I'll use it for 5 minutes on their hair to just make it a little beigeier, and it never gets too cool and it never gets warm. So I think it runs on the cool side. There's other people who say it's on the warm side, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's just opinion and perspective. So I reach for the N when I want a cooler result and don't want like a V or a B. And on that note, V and B, there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the V Victor and the B boy. So a lot of times when you're reaching for a glaze, it's unfortunately for a lot of people, it's in a panic situation. You shampoo the hair, you know, maybe you use the clay lightener. This is a common thing. You're using a clay lightener, you're just starting to balayage, you're all proud of yourself, it looks great, you know, you're watching it process and it looks so beautiful with the big panels, it almost looks like dried up toothpaste. And you're like, this is so fun. And you look at them and you say, oh my gosh, they are so done, their hair's white. But it's really the clay is hardened and underneath it still has too much gold in it. So you take them to the sink. As soon as you turn on the sink and you hit the water, you're like, oh shit, I should have left it on 10 more minutes. It's just a little too warm. So now you're hijacked, you're hot, you're sweaty, you're looking at the clock. You have to get them to your chair to cut them, or in my case, I have to get them to another person to cut them. So you're in panic mode, and then you're like, you know, we all swear that everything's orange, but there's different levels of warmth. They're really, I mean, to be orange, you really have to see orange. A lot of time it's just a strong gold. And if you refer to your color wheel, which no one does, but you really should, if you're having problems, go back to the color wheel. I tell everybody, tattoo it on the inside of your wrist, stick it on your ass, go in the bathroom and refer to it, do whatever you have to do, but that color wheel is your friend and will save you in every case. So the difference between using a B and a V is the difference between, is it really orange or is it just really yellow? Because what you need to understand that you're working with, if you have a strong blue tone, and the Redken Shades EQ, the brand new NA series, is my new favorite, but you have to proceed with caution. It is really strong blue. It has a triple blue base. So using an NA in color gels, it was always a natural ash. It had natural and ash. So this is where I think Redken is really screwing us up as hairdressers, because we move fast and they just keep bringing all these new things out, but they don't really tell us what's going on in it. So I would, seeing that line, the first thing I thought of is, oh, it's like Redken color gels, it's NA, it has neutral with a little bit of ash. It'll be like the perfect amount to glaze with. No, honey, it is Marge Simpson blue, and that's great. If you look, when this coffee chat's over, if you go back on this page and my post from this morning, the Blonde Bombshell, I need it the NA on her because she was straight up orange. If you look at the before picture, it was orange. It wasn't just bright yellow. It wasn't really gold. It was orange. So I needed the NA, but I still had to watch it, and I still cut it with a little bit of, I'm trying to think of what I put in there, maybe N, just to make sure that the blue wasn't too overpowering, because with blondes, when they have orangey pieces, usually it's they either did their hair themselves or someone did not have enough experience and did it for them, and there's only orange on part of the strand. So if you drag that 9 NA or 8 NA all the way through down here where there's white hair or yellow hair, triple blue, when it hits yellow, what's going to happen? Yellow plus blue equals green. So I'm seeing all these people on these forums saying, the NAs in Redken suck, they're making all my heads green. The NAs don't suck, you just didn't do your homework, and you're using a triple blue color on a yellow result that you're trying to get rid of the yellow. If you're mixing yellow and blue, you're always going to get green. It's the law of color. It's from the beginning of time. It's not just in hair color. It's in art. It's in paint. It's in everything in the world. That's the basis of hair color. Please take the time to understand it. If what I'm saying here doesn't resonate and you're like, oh, I got this, beautiful, rock on. If any of this, you're like, oh my gosh, I never knew that, take one of my courses, come to my classes, do a one-on-one, do my online workshop, find a way to get that information in your hands, because you will not have any more disasters. You will look at, last night when that girl came in, I look at that as a fun project. I don't go, oh, geez, she's got orange bands, she's got black roots, she's got fried ends, she's got texture in there, she's got porosity issues. I never look at it as a dread. I'm like, oh, I got to get started. You know, the only thing that's negative about it is the time that I personally take. So I go through and I map out what my procedure is going to be. I don't just get through the head halfway and panic. I'm like, okay, she has a lot of hair. I'm going to tackle just from the occipital down first. So I did all that completely, glazing, correcting, all that stuff from the occipital down, took her to the sink, rinsed it all off, shampooed it, put a deep conditioner, twisted her hair up and clipped it. And then I had the rest of the time to deal with all of this. I wasn't racing against the clock saying, oh my gosh, my triple blue glaze has been on there for 10 minutes. She's going to be so green. She's going to look like she just crawled out of a swamp. So make your timing work for you. Don't fight against it. Know what it takes. Know what you're going to have to do and what you're working against. And just take your time and breathe. And know your bases and understand what you're doing. So the NB, Nancy Boy, NB in shades. A lot of people will say, you know, I'll chime in once in a while where people will show an example. And I'm like, oh, that is the perfect opportunity to use a demi instead of permanent. A lot of people with my situation, I have a ton of gray. I'm due for my touch up. I cover my gray completely with Redken Shades EQ. What's beautiful about it is when I get in the sun and I'm, you know, out in the elements and I'm in heat, I don't have to worry that it's going to turn orange because it's a demi and it doesn't fade orange. It's a beautiful thing. So people will argue with me and I just back off because I'm like, I'm going to have people hating me on here. But I'm so passionate about that option because, you know, somebody put on there, you know, this client is gray, but she's level 5 and she wants to be blonde, but she wants highlights, and they're describing me. I am that person. I've been that person for, you know, since I was probably 20 years old. I've been trying to be a cool blonde with no brass, and now that I'm gray, even more so. So I finally figured it out, and I'm so happy that I figured it out, but I want everyone to know about it. And I find when I'm in the forums and I answer with, oh, just use, you know, Redken Shades EQ, 7NB, and 8N equal parts for 35 minutes on her roots, and then highlight her and she'll love it. And they're like, nah, Redken Shades EQ does not cover gray. Blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, well, what did you use? And they'll say, I used 8N and 8V. 8N and 8V isn't going to cover gray. NB, at least 1 ounce of NB has to be in the formula to ensure gray coverage. That's something that most of you probably don't know, and I did not know until Beth taught me that years ago. So now when I'm covering gray with Shades EQ, even though I'm looking for a cool result, I still reach for the NB because you saw how much gray that I have. So without that, I'm just going to get a stain on the hair. And that's what other people will say. The Shades EQ just stains it. It doesn't cover the gray. And then someone else said, isn't it going to fade off all over the whole head? And I was like, I don't understand what that means. I think that some people, not all people, think that a demi is a semi. There's a big difference between a semi and a demi. A true semi is squirt it right out of a tube, a bottle, or something with zero developer. There's a new product from Wella that comes in a little pointy bottle. I can't think of the name, of course, but you squirt it right on their head at the sink. It's a true semi. It's shiny. It'll give them a little bit of a stain, but it's not going to open up that cuticle and penetrate. Demi is almost equivalent to like permanent with 5 volume, but it doesn't have the lifting ability, so you're not going to get that underlying pigment contribution shift that goes on. So I'm talking fast. I'm excited. I have a headache. I just had a strange man in my house, so I'm a little flustered today, but I'm so excited about this topic. I love, love, love talking about avoiding brass, fixing brass, how to avoid it in the first place, how to see when it's going to come before you even touch the hair. There's a great little tip, and I just showed a girl that I'm training yesterday, and she was like, whoa. You can look at somebody in the consultation and know right away in 30 seconds if they're going to pull on the warm side or if they're going to be cool. So all these things are in my online live training. It's this Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I always get the question, can I watch it later? I can't make it Sunday night. My kids have a birthday party, whatever. The replay is always available, but you have to join and sign up to be able to get the replay. So don't say, oh, I can't make it and not come, because I'm doing it again because I've gotten so much great feedback. This is a class that I do live at all of my events. I've done it in Vegas, New York, Philadelphia, Orlando, and the crowd is like jam-packed all the way out into the hallway, and people love it because that, in my opinion, after 32 years, we're just fighting brass all day long. Fighting, fighting, fighting. We're fighting when we're covering gray because there's still natural color in there that we're fighting the warmth and brass in. We're fighting it in my situation because I want to be able to cover the gray and I want to highlight. And sometimes when I cover the gray and highlight at the same time, sometimes there's a disconnect with when you go over the root, it might stay a little bit warm. So ways around that, simple tips and tricks that you will love and you will use every day in the salon. If you know me, you know I am not a funky hairdresser. I'm not a Vivid mermaid. There's plenty of people in the industry that are knocking it out of the park with that. And that's their lane. They talk about Vivids, they teach Vivids. I can do them. It's not my thing. I'm all about covering gray, brass-free, blondes, brunettes, redheads, no hot roots, quick, easy, simple formulation. My purpose and passion, I was put on this earth to simplify hair color for all of you. It is so, so simple. The girl that I'm training, I have 2 girls I'm training right now, and one of them, when I had a client in my chair, she was 100% white, and she was the palest blonde you can possibly be. And I said, take a guess. What do you think I'm using on her? And she said, I don't know, 9N. And she hesitated and was second guessing. And I said, that's exactly what I use. It's simple. 9N. That's all she needed was a 9N because she's white. So whatever the swatch, I talk about it, I hate swatch books, but whatever the swatch says that a 9N is on white hair, it's going to be. So when you're not fighting the natural hair and the underlying pigment, it's easy peasy. But I think people get confused between formulating when there is pigment in the hair and formulating when there isn't. And I think they get really, really confused when it comes to a demi. The same laws do not apply in a demi and a permanent. So therefore, the NA in Shades EQ is not even close to being the same as the NA in color gels. So I hope that helps. I hope that any of you that are interested will join me on Sunday. The link is, I'll try to go back in and add the link to this coffee chat, but it's also in the post with the blonde bombshell that I did this morning. So any questions, please always reach out to me. My Instagram is LainyCake, LAINEYCAKE. And I also have a Facebook page, Ask the Color Expert, where you can jump on at any time. And you can jump on this page anytime and just ask a question about something that you run into. But remember, Shades EQ, G is green gold, AA is bright auburn, pale, you know, the lightest level of orangey auburn, not double ash. And don't use a blue if they're not really orange. You want to use a V if it's just a lot of yellow, and a V mixed with other things, and that's a whole other topic. So I also have a 4-part workshop coming up in January that I'm very excited about, and a whole module is going to be on glazing, root shadows, all the things involved with that. All your questions will be answered, and let's go glazy crazy. Let's figure all this out together. So I hope that you will join me, and thank you for listening to this week's Coffee Chat. Hope you have a great Wednesday. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.